The torture of hell means so much pain and suffering that no human could bear it. It's considered the worst thing in the world. But there was a person who went through something even worse than the torture of hell. This was the world's most radioactive man, whose DNA was completely destroyed. Blood was oozing out from all over his body. His muscles were breaking down, and his organs were detaching from his body on their own. His condition was so terrible, he was in so much pain that after watching this entire video today, you'll probably pray the same thing, that even if someone gets haunted, nothing terrible ever happens to them. And this huge incident happened because of one person's little greed. Anyway, watch the whole video to get the full story. And I'm telling you up front, little kids should not watch this video because today I'm going to tell you a true story that might freak out even the toughest people. Alright, without wasting any time, let's get started with today's heartbreaking and intense video. This was back in 1999, and this is what happened. He was living in Japan with a guy named Hichi Uki and worked at a company called JESCO. JESCO is a Japanese nuclear fuel cycle company. Their job was to supply fuel to electricity-producing plants, and this wasn't just any fuel, it was nuclear fuel made using uranium. So, this JESCO plant was no less dangerous than a nuclear power plant, maybe even more dangerous, because the power plants used safety protocols are supposed to be followed, but in this industry, there was nothing like that. When I researched this incident, I found a lot of YouTube videos showing how dangerous it was. Like, to make fuel, they had to mix certain chemicals, including uranium and stuff. This wasn't done by automatic machines. The workers themselves did this job. But since there had never been any accident or danger before, neither the company paid much attention to safety, nor did the workers worry much, mainly because most of the workers weren't very educated, and they didn't even know that the chemicals they were messing with were radioactive. Everything was going fine, but then suddenly, there was an accident. For a few days, the company's production had been pretty slow, and they weren't able to meet the fuel demand. So to speed things up, they increased the amount of uranium a bit. Usually, they used 5 parts, but now the company started adding more than 5. Because of this, the fuel production sped up. But around 10:30 in the morning, suddenly, the tank where the fuel mixture was kept, a strong blue light came out of it, and all this happened because of the increased amount of uranium. When the incident occurred, Hichi Unchi and 2 other workers were standing near the tank. This blue light was radiation, and these 3 people working near the tank were exposed to it. Now you might think, okay, they got exposed to radiation and died painfully, right? But it's not that simple. According to international radiation limits, a worker in a radiation zone can only be exposed to less than 20 millisieverts of radiation per year. For those who don't know, let me explain. Sievert is a unit used to measure radiation, especially to assess health risks from radiation exposure in humans. Normally, people can't handle more than 20 millisieverts of radiation in a whole year. But in one instant, Uchi got hit with 177,000 millisieverts. At the same time, Shinji Hara took in 10,000, and another guy, Yoko Kawa, got 3,000 millisieverts. This radiation was so intense that it could cause a painfully horrible death, something you can't even imagine. But all this doesn't happen in a flash. It happens really slowly. So when Hichi got hit by a high dose of radiation, he passed out. People thought, okay, he just fainted. Let's take him to the hospital. So he and his 2 friends were taken to the University of Tokyo hospital. At first, everything seemed normal. They were unconscious. But when the doctors learned about the whole incident, they first checked the radiation levels on their bodies. Seeing the radiation levels, the doctors ran out of the room. Then they came back wearing full protective suits so they wouldn't get exposed to the radiation. The doctors were baffled, wondering how this guy named Onchi Nam, who had been exposed to 177,000 millisieverts of radiation, was still alive. When they ran a full test on his body, they found out that his DNA was completely destroyed, yet he was still alive. The skin cells weren't regenerating after dying, which caused his skin to start falling off. And because his DNA was damaged, it wasn't just his skin shedding, the tissues in his internal organs were slowly dying too. But no one could see any of this. Unchi was quietly suffering all this pain inside. Within a day or two, Unchi's body started looking really terrible. His skin was completely gone, and cracks appeared all over his body, from which blood began to ooze out. So much fluid and blood had leaked from his body that the doctors kept transfusing new blood to keep him alive. They also injected new blood cells into his body because his own body wasn't producing any new blood cells. He became the first person in the world for whom this happened. They had blood cells transfused into the body. It was kind of an experiment that happened along with something intense. This went on for about 10 days. The muscles in his body were breaking down and falling apart on their own. Huge cracks started appearing all over his body. Every single part of his body was in such terrible pain that he couldn't even describe it. Blood was oozing out from tiny holes all over his body. Whenever he closed his eyes or blinked, blood would come out of his eyes too. Slowly, the muscles and internal organs started to rot. Every day, about 10 liters of fluid would drain out of his body, because of which his entire bed would get soaked, but the doctors kept supplying new blood cells, fresh blood, and fluids continuously to keep him alive. Still, there was no improvement in his condition. Then suddenly, one day, his heart stopped. Uchi found peace. His suffering was over. But here's the twist in the story. Doctors don't just give up like that. So, they tried to bring him back to life again, and when they gave Uchi an electric shock, he came back to life. But his condition was still really bad. His body was already in terrible shape, practically falling apart. After he died and was brought back to life, his organs were completely damaged. The doctors barely managed to keep him alive. His condition got so bad that his arms and legs started breaking and coming off. But still, the doctors kept his body stable. Then they called his family and explained that if his heart stops beating again, they needed permission not to try bringing him back to life. The doctors understood that this person was beyond saving in this world. Leaving was the better option because things just couldn't get right anymore. But as long as he was alive, he'd keep suffering. After 81 days of unbearable pain and serious struggles in the hospital, Uchi's heart finally gave out and his soul found peace. Rest in peace. Now, in this whole situation, Uchi wasn't at fault at all. He was just following the company's instructions. The people above him told him what to do, and he did it honestly. But he didn't know that the company had because of a mistake, they went through so much pain that maybe no one else in the world has ever suffered like that. When I researched more about it, I read a lot of articles. Some articles blamed the company, saying it was their negligence and that they didn't care about the lives of the people working there. But there were other articles that didn't blame the company. Instead, they said the workers were at fault. According to those articles, the incident wasn't the company's fault, but the employee's mistake. They made an error with the uranium. The percentage was changed. Now, who is at fault here doesn't matter, because JCO is a huge company that a small employee's family simply didn't have the strength to fight. But this incident exposed Japan's working culture. Even in countries we consider advanced and superior to ourselves, such incidents happen to people. This incident, which I told you about, was the most painful incident in the world. Uchi suffered from a life more painful than hell for 83 days. Hichi's condition became so severe that even the doctors gave up. The doctors themselves called the family and advised them to let him go. So let's end the video here. This was the world's most painful radiation disaster. The more advancements humans make in science and the more dangerous chemicals they learn to use, the benefits are certainly being reaped. But because of all this, some incidents also occur that shake humanity. Anyway, when I decided to make this video, I was heartbroken when I learned about the story of what had happened to this guy. At one point, I didn't even have the courage to make this type of video. I felt so bad after hearing about it. Anyway, whatever happened to Hiccup in this world, it happened. I hope he's in some heaven, some paradise, living a peaceful life. So, I'll end the video here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yes, please do let me know in the comments what you think about this entire incident. Until then, take care. Goodbye, see you in the next video.